Honestly, I think they need to come out and say this already. Because it feels as though when you watch episodes like this week's episode of Dragon Ball Super, it's implying very subtly, but also at the same time very heavily, something big regarding Caulifla and Goku. And what I'm referring to is, it seems as though legitimately Caulifla is the Universe 6 version of Goku. And why I say things like that? Well, for starters, it definitely seems as though while Kaba is kind of being, you know, the student to Vegeta, Caulifla is being the student to Goku at the same time. It's obviously not the same situation because one, Kaba is a bit more of a humble person, so he will say, hey, master and sensei and all that other shit. Caulifla, she's kind of a thug chick, you know what I'm saying? She's a brawler, she's a street chick, so she's not necessarily going to say that. But also, throughout the fight in this episode and throughout since her, you know, arrival into the Dragon Ball Super series, it seems as though Caulifla naturally progresses and does things in a way similar to Goku. Yeah, she's obviously a female, but it seems as though really heavily it's implied, or you could argue subtly, that she is Universe 6's Goku, because the way she constantly keeps progressing and she does things similar to Goku, even though she's a street brawler and she's fighting a very skilled and trained martial artist, she's also at the same time keeping up on her own, you know what I'm saying? Now, granted, towards the midway through, towards the later part of the episode, Kale jumped in and they were basically trying to jump Goku, but it definitely seems as though for the most part she was pretty much keeping up on her own. I feel to a certain degree, and you could argue here and there, whatever, but I personally feel as though it does seem sometimes like, I don't know, because Goku, he's been doing this shit for so long. He went Super Saiyan, like, it feels forever ago, right? You know, against Frieza and shit like that. Now, granted, in the actual story, it was years ago, but because we've been watching this shit since, like, you know, early 2000s, late 90s and shit like that, it seems like it was a lot longer, but in actuality, what it's been, maybe about a decade, maybe a little bit more since Goku went Super Saiyan, according to the timeline, probably a bit more than a decade or whatever, but it hasn't been that long in comparison to what it feels like in the real world, right? But nevertheless, Goku went Super Saiyan a long time ago, and he achieved a lot of those accolades of Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, the God forms and all that shit. Seems like it was a while ago, so you would honestly, or maybe it's just me in my mind, I would feel as though even though Goku is fighting as a Super Saiyan against a Super Saiyan Caulifla, that Goku should still absolutely body her because he went Super Saiyan a long time ago and he's been able to train, so naturally you would think that his Super Saiyan form or his Super Saiyan 2 form is going to be miles apart as far as strength-wise, speed-wise, and all that shit in comparison to Caulifla. But in this episode, Caulifla was holding her own. She was throwing hands. Again, maybe there's going to be some people that are going to be of the mindset that because Goku is somewhat subtly trying to train her and teach her, and at the same time he's using it so he can progress as well, that he's not fighting her completely seriously. But then that's something that people get annoyed with. It's like, okay, throughout all of the Tournament of Power, the Universe Survival arc, that's been the excuse as to why people have been able to throw hands against Goku even in his blue form, right? Like Android 17 was giving him a run for his money in the blue form, and it's always been used, the excuse that Goku's not really fighting seriously. So there's a back and forth situation with that. But I mean, this episode was hands down nothing but action-packed. It was just straight up Goku versus Caulifla, and then eventually Kale and Caulifla versus Goku. So it was almost entirely nothing but action. And be honest with you, you know, a review aside, if I was like, you know, back in the day in 4th and 5th grade, if I watched this, an episode like this would have been the talk of the week for everybody at school. That's the way that this episode felt while I was watching it. It was just like, it was cool shit. And sometimes that's what people actually prefer. It's just like, hey, I want some cool shit. I want to see people throwing hands and shit like that. But it also had some subtleties to it. There was a couple of moments where I felt like this feels like some classic Dragon Ball. And I know that's some crazy big words to say, but when Goku was using the after image technique against Caulifla, that reminded me heavily of the tournament when Goku was fighting against Jackie Chun and he was using that same technique and Caulifla was throwing off and shit like that. It definitely gave me those vibes, and that's what they've been doing with Super a lot. They've been referring back to not even necessarily Z, but more so original Dragon Ball, like bringing back the Mafuba and shit like that. So the after image technique, seeing that as well, it definitely was very reminiscent of early Dragon Ball, the first Tenkaichi Budokai. I was like, I like that. And I mean, again, the power scaling thing, and it's come to a point in Super where you just gotta accept it. It doesn't necessarily make sense that, you know, a Super Saiyan 1 Goku versus a Super Saiyan 1 Caulifla should be anywhere near on the same level, because Goku, he's transcended a billion times. Even when he fought Beerus, he got the power of the God mode and was using it in a Super Saiyan form, and he was ridiculously stronger. So whether you're gonna argue that it's just the inconsistencies of Dragon Ball Super, or you're gonna argue that Goku's holding back, there's something there. It either just doesn't necessarily make sense power scaling wise, or Goku's holding back. It gotta be one of the two, right? Because other than that, there's no way that somebody like Caulifla, she's been a Super Saiyan and a Super Saiyan 2 for, how long will we say in the actual series? What, maybe a week or two, right? You know, going into the Tournament of Power when Kaba recruited her and she first became a Super Saiyan, and then shortly after Super Saiyan 2, and you know, the training she's got from being in the Tournament of Power. It's been a couple weeks. This dude has been doing this shit for years. He fought against the God of Destruction himself, Beerus, and where I'm coming from with all of this is essentially that it does feel a little bit like, oh, as I'm watching the fight, I'm like really into it, and I'm like, yo, this is hype, this is cool shit, this is dope. Caulifla throwing hands left and right, keeping up with Goku, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, we did get some comedy bits, which I did appreciate, because it is a not necessarily serious fight, but it was very intense at the very least, you could say, between Goku and Caulifla. But then you got Champa in the stands constantly giving his one-off advice and then completely going backwards on it and shit like that. So it kept a couple of comedic bits, and it was interesting as well that Supreme Kai throughout the whole series is like, he's supposed to be this godly motherfucker, right? Supreme Kai, he's on top of many other Kai. There's only like the Omni King and those people that are above him, but you know, he's supposed to be a top dog, and you got Krillin telling him off like, hey, that's how Goku does it shit. And Supreme Kai just kind of looked like he was a little bit embarrassed in this episode, and I was like, damn, Supreme Kai, damn. And then of course, midway through, as I said earlier, you got Kale jumping in and both of them throwing hands with Goku. I think at that point, if Goku was indeed holding back throughout the fight with Caulifla, at that point is probably when he had to get really serious, just because, okay, now it's not one Super Saiyan that you could argue Goku probably could have toppled pretty easily. And again, you got to think for a second, okay, let's just say he, you know, wasn't necessarily holding back, but he is holding back regardless, because if he went blue, he should be able to stomp a mud hole in her ass, right? Blue Kaioken, and of course, he can't necessarily even do that right now. So you could also throw in the argument, Goku's weakened. The fight with Jiren really took him out towards the end of the episode. When he went Super Saiyan 3, he couldn't even hold it that long, because the amount of stamina it takes to be able to hold that form, he doesn't have it right now. So again, maybe it's not even necessarily that he's holding back purposely, he just doesn't have it in him right now, because Jiren stomped a mud hole in Goku's ass. So it was cool shit. Honestly, all of the fight was really fucking just hype, intense. Seeing Caulifla and Kale, I mean, Kale is cool, whatever. I'm not the biggest Kale fan. Caulifla for the win personally, and I also think it's interesting to see that even though she is a brawler, she's a street thug ass chick, she can still throw hands in a martial artist type of way against Goku, and you know, them teaming up was pretty interesting. It was definitely a bit off the norm. On top of that it's continuing on episode after episode of this fight, and it's not just like a one episode deal. I appreciate that more, because the Tournament of Power has been handling majority of the fights throughout one episode, and this is continuing on, especially with characters that we actually legitimately give a shit about that have been built up throughout this arc. Kale and Caulifla alongside Goku made it more interesting than just like, oh, okay, you know, Kaba versus Mona and shit like that, like stuff that we don't give a shit about. We actually care about these characters, so giving them a nice shake of more than one episode is a good thing. As a whole, the episode, it was good. It wasn't the craziest or whatever. It wasn't fantastic. It wasn't like a lot of the episodes we've had recently throughout, you know, since the Goku versus Jiren, of course, and shit like that. But it was still a solid, good episode. It just definitely makes me feel a little bit of a certain way that, you know, somebody that's a fresh Super Saiyan or even Super Saiyan 2 is giving hands against Goku. I mean, the best way I could legitimize, is that a word? Legitimize, whatever the fuck. The best way I can make it make sense in my head is that Goku is just really fucking weakened from the fight with Jiren, and that's why Caulifla is being able to hold her own against him, because in all honesty, Goku, you know, even the Red God form should be able to easily stomp a mud hole. And you gotta think for a second that going back to the Battle of Gods arc, even Super Saiyan 3 was trash against Beerus and shit like that. So you gotta imagine how much weaker the normal Super Saiyan forms are in comparison to being in the God modes and shit like that. So maybe it does make a little more sense. It's just a matter of like, Goku is training these chicks, but also getting something out of it as well. He's trying to figure out how to do the Ultra Instinct form without actually being in it. Because you think about it, if he has two people that are pretty credible. Kale is pretty damn strong as well, going and throwing hands at him. Maybe he's using that as an opportunity to try and do the same techniques that he used when he was in Ultra Instinct. Towards the end of the episode, the cliffhanger of Kale losing her mind again. I honestly thought we were past that point, but maybe it's because Kale was trying to achieve something similar to Super Saiyan 3 because they got enough of a glimpse to see how it's done. So maybe because, once again, when she gets to a point of strength, she just can't control it. I mean, that seems to be the case or whatever. So it's kind of like, I thought Kale was past that point too. That's why this episode, again, it was a good, I'm saying 7 out of 10. It was a lot of action. Did feel a little bit, but the martial arts stuff that we got in it was pretty damn awesome. And I mean, again, Kale and Caulifla versus Goku, a same battle. This is some of the shit that made DBZ what it was back in the day, popularity-wise, because it's cool fucking action. Was it the greatest episode of all time? Did it make complete sense? No. But it was still pretty fucking cool, and at the same time getting some more training for Goku, so maybe when he gets a rematch with Jiren, he can use some of the similar techniques he used in Ultra Instinct without actually having to achieve that form yet again. Kind of curious what you guys think about this episode. How do you feel about Goku versus Caulifla? Do you feel as though it's just kind of BS that Caulifla was keeping up with Goku, even though Goku should be leaps and bounds ahead of her, or because Goku's weakened, or maybe he's holding back, or both? That's why it made sense. Also, what do you think about Kale once again going berserk and losing her mind? Again, I thought we was past that. I thought Kale kind of mastered that, so that was kind of like a little, come on Kale, what you doing? And what is your predictions for this fight? How is it going to end? Do you think that they're actually going to be able to get Goku? Come on, stop. They're not winning. Maybe there'll be an interruption. Maybe one of them will get eliminated and then something happens to break up the fight. I don't know. I don't know exactly how this is going to end. And your overall predictions for shit. I mean, I will talk about the preview in a whole other video because that shit got me hyped. The preview, like, you should watch the preview for 114. And your overall thoughts of the episode. Good episode, but it did feel a little bit problematic. Art and animation was pretty cool too. And seeing Super Saiyan 3 again, a rare form that we rarely get to see. That was dope. But that's all I have for this one though. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and stalk my Facebook to get more when the video ends. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, bow. Have an awesome day.